Hey everybody, it's Tanya Roberts, and this is Fairness Fighter Podcast. A little background on me. My name is Tanya Roberts, like I said, and I am the CEO of Fairness Fighters Advocacy and Consulting Group. I have a background in Bachelor of Social Work with a minor in psychology and associate degree in criminal justice. I also went to law enforcement training at the Maine Criminal Justice Academy, and I'm certified in tribunal administrative justice. So that's just a little bit about my background and education. So I think just by what my background and education says about me is I am committed to fairness and integrity and transparency. And I'm very empathetic. I feel that everybody should be treated the same, whether you're the janitor or the CEO, that laws apply to everybody, whether you're a janitor or a CEO. So, with that in mind, for my first podcast, I thought it was very important just to go back to where it all begun. So, my journey in my fairness fighting, I guess, started when I was very young. It was just something that I was always passionate towards. I had a career out in Alberta, and I was on the ethics committee, and I trained all the new employees for this. Well, it was for WCB Alberta, and I would train and do training on ethics and integrity. And I was also part of the ethics committee, which WCB Alberta took very serious. We handled all sorts of ethical dilemmas. We trained our staff, and one of the big things that we taught our staff was don't make a decision you wouldn't want on the front page of the paper. Okay, don't do anything you wouldn't want on the front page of a paper. Okay, so that's how I was trained, and that's how I trained with that mindset forefront. Okay, you're a government agency. I took all my training in the United States as well. They are a litigious country, as we all know, and that was part of our training that you don't do or say anything that you wouldn't want to be standing in front of a judge or standing in front of the court of public opinion and defending. Okay, so that's transparency. And that has been ingrained in me since I started my academic and professional career when I was 18 years old. So, fast forward to my time here in New Brunswick. I was out west and then I moved back home, and I was an external hire at WorkSafe New Brunswick, and I was part of the decision review office. And basically, it's an internal branch of WorkSafe New Brunswick, but it's completely separate and independent. And boys, when I was an external hire, it was very shocking how we were treated as a staff. In Alberta, they have a, a team that's very similar, and it's called the Decision Review Body. And let me tell you, they were very highly regarded in Alberta, and people would seek them out for advice and scenarios because at our core we wanted to be good decision makers. Okay, so if you got to the DRB and you were a decision review specialist, wow, like that was like one of the sought out jobs, right? Because you were respected, you were smart, you could overturn decisions, you could uphold decisions, and you would hold hearings, right? So, important work, very important work. So, that's the same thing that was here that I was an external hire to, and it was called the Decision Review Office, which is the DRO. If you hear me say DRO, I'm talking about the Decision Review Office. So when I was first hired on, it became very clear by WorkSafe NB Dynamics that we used to joke that we were the island of misfit toys. One of the ladies said that we were like the redheaded stepchild of the organization. Basically, WorkSafe New Brunswick didn't like us. We were employed by them, but they didn't like us because we overturned a lot of their decisions. I personally overturned about 80% of the decisions that come across my desk. And so now when I think of about the 20% of decisions that I upheld, knowing what I know now, I even question if I made the right decisions the 20% of the time. And that's something that keeps me up at night, quite frankly, because I take pride in my decision making. And when I was there, our leader made it very clear we're not to sign our name to anything that we aren't proud of. So make your decisions, make the right decisions, and don't worry about the fallout, because we were kind of that last check and balances before it got to the tribunal. Okay, so while I was there, I noticed just how poorly we were treated. We would get messages from case managers questioning our decisions, disagreeing with our decisions. We would see them not implementing our decisions. There was a director of quality assurance. Her name is Melody, and she would reach out and often question our decision making, the quality of our decisions. And we would talk about this openly in our group discussions, like in our team meetings. And one of the things that we always said was, what about the decision didn't you agree with? And it was very clear our decisions were never read. They just looked at the bottom line to see if it was either confirmed or overturned or varied, and or revoked was the terminology we used. And they didn't really look to see why we had overturned it. So that was very, very odd to me, because again, at my time at WCB Alberta, anytime an appeal come back, we would have to go through the appeal and put why it wasn't upheld, and kind of just like a breakdown so you can understand it, in the hopes that you're not going to make the same error twice. Because if you're making the same mistakes over and over and over, it's a systematic breakdown, right? Like, make the decision correctly and get the claim moving forward. Okay. So that wasn't the case here. And it was bizarre to me, like bananas to me. I couldn't fathom it. So I was asked, because I had worked in different jurisdictions, to be part of, it was called a Section 46, like a little work group. Every year, the Workers' Compensation Act, they pick a few policies and procedures and legislation to review to see if there should be any adjustments, to see if it should be updated, right? Rightly so. So this one session that I was invited to was a Section 46. And basically Section 46 of the Workers' Compensation Act gives you the authority to revisit a decision and make the right decision if the wrong decision had been made before. And what's, again, bananas about WCB here in New Brunswick, WorkSafe New Brunswick, is that a case manager can't just go and change the decision. The decision has to be made through appeals, unless there's new information that comes to file. Which, fine, but at the same time, that's not how I was taught at WCB Alberta. We were taught that we were the driver of the bus. You had to bring in the specialists and let them off as needed, right? And you were always gathering information. It was your job to really look at a claim and sit down with the claimant, the injured worker, the employer, and all the stakeholders to see what's the barriers, how can we overcome the barriers, what do we need to do, right? Because it's complex. It's not just, oh, I have an ankle sprain, here's 6 weeks and I'm back to work. Like, it's complex. Claims are dynamic and they're always changing. They're fluid, right? So one of the things here was that they couldn't, they were reviewing Section 46. So a part of like the appeal process at WCB Alberta is early resolution. So if there's an appeals advisor who gets a claim that they're representing an injured worker or an employer, then they would review everything. And the first step was calling the decision maker and the decision maker supervisor just to see if there was any negotiation to resolve the appeal, so it doesn't have to go through that formal process, right? Because sometimes it's just, oh, did you know this? And it's like, oh my God, no, I didn't know that. Like, we don't have that information. Well, let me get that information to you. And then everything's corrected and boop, it's back on the straight and narrow and the claim has gone forward, right? Like that is early resolution. And that was like hammered into us at WCB Alberta. Not here, not at WorkSafe New Brunswick. So I was brought into that because when I worked at WCB Alberta, I worked in basically every single role from adjudication right up through appeals advisor. And early resolution was kind of our thing. And so my supervisor thought it would be great to have me sit in and basically talk about what it was like on a different jurisdiction, right? How a different jurisdiction handled appeals. So as I'm sitting there and I'm listening to, like, these are the leaders at WorkSafe, okay, talk about not changing Section 46, I thought, you know what? And I was having technical issues that day, so I couldn't have my computer screen on. And I just said, I have more to offer. I remember it. I said, I have more to offer verbally than visually, right? All great and dandy. So I said that I think I have a lot to offer because I did work in a different jurisdiction, and early resolution was like a really big deal. And it really helped clear out the backlogs of appeals and things waiting, because if it doesn't have to escalate through the system, like that was our main goal, just to figure out a compromise, get everybody on the same page and move forward. So I told them about a story that I had, and I said, at WCB Alberta, another thing they were really good at is recognitions. So if somebody did outstanding work on a file, you know, you're going to get like a little Visa card or something, and you might even make it in their like quarterly newsletter that says, hey, look, this person's great. This person did good work. Or this person had a really serious injury and this worker got them back to work, right? Like, or yes, they will never be able to get back to their day of accident work, but look at the positives that comes out of it. Because, you know, when you're dealing with disability and injury and work injury, it's a heavy subject, right? So you have to celebrate your wins. And sometimes they're small wins. My God, sometimes they're small wins, but you have to celebrate it. You have to celebrate it every single time. And part of our training was to make sure that we were we had to talk to our clients every 2 weeks and understand what was happening in their lives. Like, we would not have gotten away with spoke to injured worker for 20 minutes. Like, we'd be like, well, what did you talk about? Right. So like our file notes at WCB Alberta were like long. Sometimes there'd be like 2 or 3 pages long, and in different file notes because of the character limitations in our file notes. Like, that's how in depth we were taught to document. And none of this was ever documented like this at WorkSafe New Brunswick. Like, it was very hard to get through a claim file. So again, sorry for my sidetrack. So I was in this group and the quality assurance lady was talking, and then I spoke up and said, let me tell you why early resolution and why being able to change the decision without an appeal or new information is important. And I shared a story about a claim that I managed at WCB Alberta. So basically, this claim had come from a different case manager. This case manager had left and gone and got employment outside the board. And of course, her claims had to be distributed, right? So this particular file that I got, I'm reviewing it. And when I review a claim, like I did back then and like I did right up until today, and continue to do, I read everything. I open every file note. I open every sheet of paper, because sometimes there's miscoding, and sometimes it will be coded bill when it's really a medical report. So I just go in and click. If it's not, it's gone. It takes me an extra 10 seconds, but I am thorough. So I was reading over this new file, and it was this gentleman, and he was a heavy duty mechanic. And when I was looking at his treatment plan, he was heading for an amputation of his ankle. He had a really bad ankle fracture. And so I'm reading it and I'm like, geez, you know, this doesn't make sense. Why isn't his ankle healing? And I'm like looking at his file to see if he had any comorbidities like diabetes, like if there was something hindering his ability to heal, which wouldn't have impacted the claim like compensability wise, but it would have helped me manage it and understand it, right? Because I'm a fact finder. I need to understand. So I was reviewing all this and it just said that he was doing sedentary duty. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I call him up and he's angry. Let me tell you, he's an angry guy. And I said to him, like, I don't know what happened. I said, I'm reviewing your file now. There's some things that I don't understand. So, let's go through it. Like, was this your day of accident? This is your employer. This is your job. This is your injury. This is what your doctor said. Like, I'm going through his claim file. Yep, 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 yep. Okay. Like, what's happening here, right? Where's this animosity coming from? So I'm looking, because he's freaking out basically, because he's about to get his friggin' ankle chomped off, like his leg cut off at the ankle. Like, he's freaking out. That's where his animosity is coming from. Like, I don't even know why I said I don't know where his animosity is coming from, because I know exactly where his animosity was coming from. He was probably a 40-year-old man and he was about to get his foot amputated because of his ankle fracture. So I brought him and his family in and we spoke, and I'm like, okay, like, what's sedentary duties? Like, I see you're doing sedentary duties, but I don't see what duties. And he's like, well, what's sedentary duties? And I'm like, well, sedentary duties is you're not supposed to lift over 10 pounds and you're basically sitting the entire time. Like, an office worker is sedentary duties. You basically get up and go to the bathroom, and, you may have to bring a file around, but nothing weighs over 10 pounds and you are sitting the majority of your day. So when I said that to him, he laughed. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, I change oil on these big trucks. I'm like, pardon me? I said, you change oil on the big trucks. I said, how is that sedentary? And he said, well, there's a stool for when my foot gets tired. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's it. That's what was wrong with the claim, right? Like, yeah, he was cleared to do sedentary, but he wasn't doing sedentary duties. So he was working outside of his work restriction, which was impacting his ankle's ability to heal, basically, right? He was supposed to be sitting and he wasn't. He was changing the oil on like big trucks. He was a heavy duty mechanic. So I'm like, oh my God, that's it, right? So I get on the phone, call the employer. Hey, I'm sitting here with so-and-so. We're just going over the details of the claim. I'm the new case manager. Is this what he's doing for his duties? Yeah, that's what he's doing. I'm like, okay, well, that's not sedentary duties, first of all, right? Well, what's sedentary? So again, we go over it and they're like, oh no, we can't, like, we're just a small trucking company here in Alberta. We can't accommodate that, which is fine. They can't accommodate it, right? So I'm like, okay, since you can't accommodate it, fine. I'm pulling modified work and Mr. So-and-so won't be coming to work tomorrow. Okay. Was the employer a little eeked with me? Yeah, of course. Of course they were. But you have to put the best interest of your injured worker first and foremost. Like, you have to make the right decision. You're making medical decisions on behalf of injured workers. And you're there to interpret the information and make sure that it all aligns. And if it doesn't, it's your job to identify that it's not aligning and fix it. Certainly when somebody is about to lose their foot. Okay. So as soon as I pulled modified, he started to heal. And it was amazing. His attitude changed. He still had hopes. I can remember he say, I can't even slide with my kids anymore, right? And he's like, I have hopes that I'm going to be able to go sliding with my kids this winter, was what he said, because it was around that time of year. And like, I tear up because when you are a disability manager and it's your job to assess and pivot and offer the benefits and services at the appropriate times to help your claimant like exceed any limitations they thought they had. It's such a rewarding job, especially when you see something like this. Because he started to heal, folks. He no longer needed his foot amputated. He had to have an ankle fusion, but he had his foot, right? So of course, my boss was an amazing boss. Let me tell you, I worked with some incredible people. at WCB Alberta. Incredible supervisors, incredible trainers. The people at the decision review body were just like, oh, wealth of knowledge, and I just dug. Like anytime I could dig at their smart brains to learn more, I did, because I wanted to be better. Because the more I learned, the better decision maker I was for my client. So when this happened, my boss was like, I'm proud of you. And I got, it was like $150 gift card or something. Like I got a recognition about making the right decision and saving this injured worker's foot. He no longer had an amputation, right? And the family come in and like we were rejoicing together because he wasn't from Edmonton, but he had to come in, and when he come in for his appointment, a lot of the times he would come down and meet with me because my motto was the most difficult clients we're meeting face to face the more times, right? So you can see me, my heart. I'm not looking at you like you're a number on my file or on my computer. I'm looking at you like you're a human being, and you're going to look at me like I'm a human being, and we're going to respect each other, and we're going to get through any issues that we have. Some days we're going to not disagree, but you're you and I'm me, and we're going to respect each other. And I'm always going to take the time to hear you out, right? So I shared this story with WorkSafe New Brunswick, okay? And I thought it would be light bulbs clicking off on all the leaders, right? And it wasn't. Instead, I was laughed at and told that I made the wrong decision because I let the injured worker influence my decision making. And that is the exact reason for Section 46. And I had made the wrong decision. I shouldn't have been able to do that. And I kind of stepped back a little bit and I spoke up and I said, no, I made the right decision because his foot was saved. And who else should be influencing a claim other than the injured worker? Like who else should be helping make the decisions about their life as maybe the person? We're not dictators. And I said I made the right decision. And it shocked me that if this exact file was here in New Brunswick, there would be a New Brunswicker that would have had his foot amputated. Okay? So after that, and just the way I was laughed at, and there was supervisors and managers rolling their eyes and laughing at me as I'm telling the story I just shared with you. And I put in a complaint, or I put in a letter to my supervisor who was like, you guys are brilliant, you're strong, you're smart, write good decisions, own your decisions, and I'm here to support you. Like when I say that there should be a manager handbook written off this previous manager at WorkSafe New Brunswick's management styles, hear me when I say there should be. She empowered us. She had our back, but held us accountable, which is so healthy. Like it's such a healthy environment. And she kept us secluded from the rest of claims who were basically talking crap about us. Like we would see in file notes, oh, I guess so-and-so at the decision review office thinks they're a doctor, right? Like in people's claim files. Like it was crazy. So I wrote my supervisor a note saying, I don't know if WorkSafe is a good fit for me. Like I was really taken back by the managers and Melody in particular laughing and degrading me about a really good decision that I had made. And she said to me, Tanya, that's such a good letter. Can I share this with the president? And I said, you can do whatever you want with it, right? Like this is just me saying I'm questioning whether I should stay here because that's messed up, guys. Like that's messed up. So, and like she would always say, but we're here, we can stop it, right? They'll appeal it and it will get to us and we can stop it. So I'm like, yeah, you're right. We're the decision correctors at the Drow. So my boss took the thing to, it was Doug Jones at the time, and Doug Jones read my letter and was furious. I mean, he was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, what the heck? This doesn't make any sense. And Doug wanted to handle it pretty swiftly, but got talked into just doing and like an external investigation into what had happened. And like I just wrote my boss a note saying like I don't want to be part of these focus groups anymore if this is what it's going to be like. Like that was awful. It was humiliating and I don't like it. I didn't feel comfortable. So so WorkSafe sent me a little thing. It got to HR. Like Josie Pelche was the lady that was handling it, the head of HR. And they had, I think his name was Jody Carr, that had done like an external review or whatever of my letter. Basically, I just sent a letter and to my boss and they did an external review and he come back and was like, yeah, that's messed up. Melody should have no connection with Tanya. Her and Tanya shouldn't talk. Basically, that's how they were going forward. And because we were in two separate departments, it kind of like stayed at that lower escalation mode if I was comfortable with it. And which I was, right? Fine. And it moved forward. So I'm a single mom. Side note, I'm a single mom. My ex and I separated for the final time back in 2019. And I haven't been paid like a cent of child support since 2020. You know the drill. They pay a little bit, then they get a new girlfriend, and they have to be such a great dad. They have to convince this person they're such a great dad that maybe they need to spoil the girlfriend. I don't know. Anyway, he got a girlfriend and didn't pay child support anymore. So I haven't been paid a cent since 2020, like not a cent. And in 2023, just with the rising costs of everything through the pandemic, I put some feelers out. There was always people kind of putting feelers out from Alberta to see if I wanted to come back. And I ended up applying for this job, and it was a director position of a big place, and starting salary was like $110,000 a year. And they were going to pay for my move, and I was excited, and my son was excited because we lived in Alberta for so long. So we I took the position. I accepted the position. And this was probably April 2023. Okay. So I accepted the position and we were all part of a big, because we were part of the legal department. And we had a big meeting at the legal department. All the WorkSafe lawyers were there, including David Luther. That was our general counsel at the time. I hear he slinked off, couldn't take the pressure of all what I'm doing here. So he was on the call, and like I said, all the other lawyers and all of the decision review office. So at the end of the meeting, he shared, hey, anybody got any news? And I hit my unmute button and say, I have news. I say that I've accepted a position, and I'm not really sure my start date. We're just working out the details, but I've accepted it. I've submitted my resignation, my verbal resignation, into my boss, and I'll be leaving WorkSafe. And everybody was like, no. And David was like, why, right? And I'm like, it's the dollar and cents for me. I'm a single mom. I'm not getting child support, and I'm struggling. Like my rent alone was $13.50 a month on top, and then I needed to pay heat and lights and cable in my car and insurance, and then live on one income with zero child support. So I thought the best way to do that would be just to get a job with a higher paying, with more salary, right? So keeping in mind, I was very effective as a decision review officer, and it's because the way I was trained at WCB Alberta. Like I was trained by the best guys. Like I was trained by trainers who cared and who instilled in us, you make the right decision. You know what I mean? So I think there was around in 2022, that was my first full year. I think there was around 604, 605 files completed by the entire decision review office. And I had completed like 100 and I can't remember if it was 132 or 142 of them. And the rest was divided by the rest of the staff. So like I was a huge numbers girl and I could pop out my decisions and I made good decisions. They never got overturned and I was fair. So after the meeting was done, David Luther took my boss aside and was like, "Ooh, we can't lose her, right? Do you know what's going to happen to our stats if we lose her?" And he said, "How about we offer her some contract work?" And my boss is like, "What do you mean?" And there's like, "Well, say she does Section 7. Section 7 is basically whether or not your claim is entitled. And say she does a Section 7 file, we'll pay her like $1,000 for a Section 7. If she does a wage loss one or loss of earnings file, then we'll, maybe that'll be like $1,500. So I'm thinking, holy crap, like the way I get through these, I can get like do a couple files on the weekend and change my son's quality of life, because that's what it was all about. Like I wear the same clothes that I wore when I was Alberta back in 2017. I don't care, but my son grows and now he's bigger than me. So I was like, cool. All I needed to do was be able to give my son a good life and not have to worry. I'm okay with that. So I redacted and withdrew my employment acceptance from this job from Alberta. And they were pissed, and rightly so. Rightly so. So that was in April of 2023 that I was talked into staying at WorkSafe New Brunswick because the quality of my work was so high. So next thing I know, it was like May, and it was my day off actually. I had a vacation day. I was taking my son. We were going, him and his friend, I was taking them down to Fredericton. And I get a call or I get a text message from my boss saying, "Can you log on?" And hear me when I say my boss is not the type of, my previous boss was not the type of person to say, "It's your vacation time, but you need to come in for 5 minutes." Like she was like, "We do stressful work. When it's your time away, you take that time and you just don't think about work, right? Like you need that time. You need your vacation." Like she was that, like such a good boss. I can't even, like, my God, WorkSafe. You guys did good hiring her. You shouldn't have let her go. Anyway, so she wanted us to come in and I'm just like, oh my God, right? So I'm like, yeah, of course. So I can log onto my computer. So we're all there and like, of course, we're all like, the teams messaging each other and texting each other, trying to figure out what's going on here. And when I was out at WCB Alberta, unfortunately, there was one of our coworkers that got in an accident and didn't make it on her way to work. And that's how they were treating us. Like it felt the same. So when I looked at the meeting invite, it was like the head of HR, the head of general counsel, Tim Peterson, the president. And we were like, oof. I said, that's it. One of our team members has passed away, is what I thought. So we had this meeting and